Hello, this is Linda Lily Kranz, mother, teacher of a special needs child at home, caretaker for my wonderful daughter that has exceptional needs, and her name is Trinity, and she has Down syndrome. And I started this YouTube channel initially to share with others ways that Trinity and I are working on her academics and her learning to read and math. And we have had successes, and we continue to work daily. Today's conversation is something that started to stir around in my head, and that is the conversation of what works. There are so many programs out there, and I've offered you one that's worked for us, is the MECS Montessori software, plus Montessori education, as well as some of what's called, I think, best practices. I was going to look that up and see exactly how that terminology was used, because sometimes we come up with this word label and we use it to fit us. We love the words, we love how they sound together, and they really mean much differently than what they originally were out for. But this is what best practices means for me. Based on my experiences as a parent, and as a student that came out of elementary education at the university level, also training in the Montessori educational field, also experiences sitting in on occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and a whole variety of research that I've done as a parent. Because once you have a child that has some significant challenges, whether they have some exceptionalities, it could be gifted, can be challenges with delayed development, it can be cognitive challenges, it can be just what we would classify as teachers as general ed student that's getting into a block. It happens to us all. So, what tools are we going to use? What have we learned and perfected that has worked for us? And that's what I would language around what best practices are. And best practices are usually individualized to the person and what I've personally mastered. So I bring to working with my daughter Trinity, or when I was in the classroom, I brought to the classroom those particular experiences. And that was my craft. That was my mastery. That was my pedagogies that I had developed. So I wasn't master of everything that was out there. So I wanted to discuss, how do we discern what is working, what's not working, because we are committed to the challenges to provide our children with the best we can provide them with, in order to achieve, like I earlier had explained, the highest potential within the parameters and beyond those parameters, if it is at all possible, but to reach the highest goals that are possible for our children. And I think some of the highest goals for me is language development, because I want to be able to communicate with her. I want to know what my daughter wants to do in her life, what her passions are, what she likes, what she dislikes, and how we work with that. And I want her to be able to read. Reading's a very important skill. It is something that enriches our lives and our leisure time. We can pick a good book. We can function. We can read signs. We can read the menu. There's a lot of opportunities for functioning in life if we can read. And at what level we read really helps with our ability to interact in life. Conversation's important. I can have conversation here with you that are my audience, and maybe I'm helping someone, and this is you take pleasure in having conversation. So that is what I want with her. Mathematics, I want whether she accomplishes mathematical equations is for me in particular not a goal as much as what Maria Montessori explained as the mathematical mind. Because mathematics is a discipline. It's like practicing an instrument and practicing your scales daily. It's like doing your drills for basketball in order to prepare for all the movements and the strategies you need in the game. So that is also what I'd like for her with mathematics, is to train the mind to process information, to problem solve, to think about word problems. So that's why mathematics is important for me. And I could go on to other elements of what I'm working on, especially typing. For me, and this is personal, this I can bring to the table as something that I am bringing my personal experience of what I think is important. I learned to type when I was in 9th grade. We all had to take typing. It was actually rather fun because the head coach of the football team was also the typing teacher. And we had fun because everybody was in the class. When you have electives, we're kind of isolated for each other, but it was a time when I think we must have had 50 students in there typing. So I learned to type. So what was going on in my head came out through my hands. Eventually I got so good at typing, I could think a word and type it. And my processing of writing and expressing myself came out so much more fluently. And my theory is when her musculature in her hands are so challenged by writing, and we still do work on printing and cursive, that typing will eventually be something that will work the hand. And also, I liken that back to Maria Montessori's philosophy is that the hand is the prehensile organ of the brain. So if we work the hand, we are also working cognition. So this is some of my rationale for why I feel and am passionate about typing. And typing isn't something that Trinity resists. It is something that she is accomplishing and that she has enjoyed for many, many years. And so I will explain more about how I work with typing in all the increments of how I've developed teaching Trinity to type. And so, which brings me back to best practices, something I'm passionate about, something I have knowledge about, so something I can bring to my daughter and my student, something that I have mastered and have an understanding of, and I know how to break down the task to present it to her. So I have a comfort level with this, but what if I had a student or a child that had other needs than what I'm comfortable with? Then I have to seek out support in my team, or I have to look around and find another program, another approach that's going to work with her difficulties or her weaknesses and my weaknesses. So if you don't mind, I'll take a moment. I need to look at my notes. And, oh, I got that. Okay. What program? What software? And I was also wanting to, when you're looking at a program, what is your personality and what is the personality of the student? And we kind of sit back and we look at our observation. Is this something that they will grow to find excitement for learning and developing through? Is this something that I feel works? Do I need to give it more time? Is it not working? Am I not implementing it consistently in such a way that we're going to have development and growth? Is this something that frustrates me so much as the teacher or as the parent that we just need to give this up and find something else? Ask yourself these questions. I've asked myself these questions because I've come to this with so much training in the classroom and an educator, that sometimes maybe I'm at a disadvantage because I don't want parents to feel like if you don't have a teacher certificate that you can't educate your children. Sometimes you're the best teachers because you don't have to untrain yourself by how you see your child from bringing your background experience to your child. You may be much more in tune with their passions and their desires and how to have fun and how to bring success into the picture. And what inspires us may not inspire the student or our children. So we find something that we really are excited about. We got a new workbook or we got this new unit plan we want to do, and our student or our child are not inspired. That's why I think sometimes someone on the team may be really inspired and a match for a student because their expertise and their mastery really is wonderful that they have this, and it works with certain particular students. And then we have to stop and ask ourselves, well, this isn't working with this particular student. My passion and my expertise is just not connecting with them. So then we have to rethink, what is it that will work, that is outside my comfort zone? And that I think we need to reflect on as well. Which also, it's timing, synchronicity, and a sensitive period. Because sometimes what's going to work needs to happen soon. We need to implement it. We need to be improvisational. And my work in playing my flute and being part of the arts and dance and learning how to get out of my comfort zone and improvise as an artist and as a teacher and as a parent is important, because we have to recognize that this is a sensitive period. And Maria Montessori talks about sensitive periods. If you want to look at her philosophy and rationale, that I've been very intrigued by, she has noticed that in ages 3 to 6, it's a sensitive period for language development. And not to confine it to those stages, because I personally believe in the plasticity of the mind, and that also with children's and persons with developmental delays, that sensitive period is harder to distinguish. But then again, there's this moment of passion, this moment of being inspired, and you need to think quickly. What do I need to implement here? What do I need to work with? What do I need to bring to the table to keep this learning and inspiration alive? So that maybe what was a program or a curriculum that was designed or a unit plan you created or some software you had just really created some inspiration for a long period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, and then things have toned down. I have to recognize, is it still working? Do I need to integrate it with some other tools that I have that may work better? So it's keeping it alive, and I liken this to when I work with my daughter Trinity. I'm going to share with you, I have a basket of stars and I have a cup of stars. We start with this cup empty. And then I say, well, we're going to work and we're going to have 15 stars today, which is really what we're doing, is regulating time. One task can be between 5 to 10 minutes, and that's 1 star. So when I work with Trinity for about an hour and a half, that's about 15 stars. I know that. She doesn't necessarily know it, but she knows, I think she's internalized it, because when I say 5 stars, I know that's going to be about 30 minutes, and she knows that's not going to be as much time. So this is a system that works for me, because I don't make lists of things that I'm going to do, because I go by the improvisation of, what we start with working with, and maybe we're going to do some cursive writing words, and then I notice her behavior. Maybe she's a little crabby today. She's not feeling really well. So I think about, okay, well, what am I going to do next at this? We're working our hand. The muscles in her hand might be getting tired. But then again, maybe if we do some typing afterwards, that will actually loosen up her hands. Or the Dexteria app, where it kind of frees up the hand. Or working with handwriting. I'm trying to work on the duration and the endurance of the muscles in her hand. So we do some of the Packy art, and then we do some cursive writing, and then we do some typing. So I'm varying what happens with the musculature in her hand, at the same time as observing whether she can sustain that kind of endurance, and if not, I pick something else. I mean, we're going to do some reading. Maybe she's really into reading today, and writing sentences and some adjective exploration. So it gives me a moment of being alive with her. What are her needs? Getting feedback, evaluating her at that moment on this day and how she feels. That's why personally I am more of an eclectic teacher, educator, and parent. I like to be more improvisational with my instruction with her, which I am not going to say is a strength, because sometimes with particular personalities and students, they really thrive on a regimen of a specific routine and instruction daily. That is what they need. I at one time envisioned, while I was teaching, a school that maybe had 2 Montessori classrooms, and then maybe they had the mastery of a traditional classroom, where I've seen some teachers that have taught for 25, 30 years, and they've just mastered their classroom and their design of their classroom, and children thrived in that type of environment. So I think that's what I would say is best practices, is master level instruction done not in a cookie cutter type design, but looking at the different philosophies and presentations of what is needed for particular needs of a student. And I'll also share best practices, some of what I use with Trinity. I really like the iPad, and I like to use the Wi-Fi keyboard. I think it has a nice soft touch. I really like how she can get feedback from the keyboard as she's using it with her apps. So this for me is much better for her and what I've observed for her in doing her typing. So this is one of our tools. Another tool I bring to the table is the Montessori bead frame. I don't know if you can see the whole thing there, but when we're talking about place value, we have units, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, 100s of thousands, and a million. 1 million. This is called the large bead frame, and it's from the Montessori materials. So I bring in some of my experience with Montessori materials with her if she should need them, if she gets confused. And then also, most recently, I really like these books. I've found the Cumin books. They are very simple, and they go in really nice baby steps. And Trinity likes them. If she didn't like them, then I wouldn't be using them. Telling time. And we are also doing cursive writing words. Really like this because some of the cursive books we had just weren't giving her the specifics of what she needed. So I like this for her. And I also use these in the Montessori classroom. Really like these composition books. And I have one for math, one for grammar, and these are really nice for our daily work. And for her, I don't know if you can see, but we're writing our math problems, and we keep a log of everything we do during the day. So here's another one of my tools and best practices. I also really like to have a planner with Trinity, and this planner is very nice. So every day we do calendar, and we go over our planner, and then I have this whiteboard. Let me see if I can get it in front of the camera without a glare. But we have a whiteboard, and then we have a little stand I made out of a hanger. I got that idea from the art teacher, and this is what we go over what we're going to do for the day. So those are one of our tools. Something else that's been a great tool is this book stands. We must have about 4. Before iPads had the stands, we use these, but they're great for book reading, for putting our artwork on it, which brings me to, I wanted to share, and I'll be discussing this more, Packy art. And this is just a wonderful book where Trinity has been learning how to take shapes. This is actually the letter Y, and she made a drawing from the Y. And so Trinity loves art. So this was my way of taking something she loved to do, which is drawing and art, and finding a way to help her learn to go beyond her current ability level and learn more. So this was me following her passion and her desire and trying to figure out how I could go farther. And I have a wonderful story about Packy Cola and her work and how I came to know her just about 10 years ago, and I'll share that later. Now let me see if I have any other tools here. Oh, this is one of the improvisational. I got this from the hospital. Helps exercise your lungs, and I don't exactly know what it's called, but Trinity would yawn when she was reading. So I thought she needed to increase her lung capacity. So sometimes I have her take a deep breath in 3 times and inhale, and it has helped improve that. So I don't have scientific research on it, but it was something I took an observation. I had a moment where I was thinking, does synchronicity of the moment in here work in my brain, where I'm thinking, oh yeah, maybe that might work for her. Synchronicity is something actually that Carl Jung came up with, where you have a series of meaningful events that are occurring concurrently. And I think that that's very helpful in keeping the moment alive. You know, what's working, what's going on in your head, what experience do you have, what knowledge do you have, what knowledge does somebody else on the team have that might work, and implementing it. Because in a timely way. Because sometimes the delay in implementing what you think's going to work now, it won't work later. That's my experience. Let's see. Oh, how do we reflect if something's working and then we think it's not working? We have to step back and reevaluate. Maybe we are not using our best method for presenting the program or the information we want to give to the child. So we need to reevaluate whether it's us that's not working, but the program would be a fit, or the software, or the curriculum. So, and also, let's see. Oh, maybe we're doing too much. Maybe we're pushing too much. Maybe we're teaching too much. Maybe less is more. So then we have to reevaluate ourselves, our personalities, and this for me brings up the thought of Maria Montessori, and always going back to the teacher, the directress, the director, the personality of the person presenting the instruction. What's going on with us personally? Maybe the variable is us and not the program. Also, I want to bring up mistakes. Mistakes being from the student when they're learning and they're struggling and it's new information. This is the instructional level. It is how much should we slow down? How do we articulate and give them language around them, for them, in learning something new, the new information? And I like the, in MECS software, they say mistakes are our friends. I mention this because my daughter, Trinity, doesn't do well with mistakes. So I'm trying to encourage her, that's how we learn. She doesn't always listen, that that's how we learn, that are mistakes. Mistakes are weaknesses I don't believe we avoid. In the classroom, in the preschool classroom, in a Montessori classroom, we allow the children to go to their areas that they love to be in. I had found and observed from my observations, I understand why Maria Montessori was trying to build that innate passion and desire and follow the child, that they would naturally go where they needed to go. But I had also observed early on that perhaps we might consider the child that's always avoiding the mathematics area and loves to be in practical life, that perhaps we need to give them some guidance and ignite their interest in that area, because these building blocks and these missing links are bridges. Those weaknesses are bridges to helping give support to the child's ability to learn. So I bring that up. It's something I consider. It's something I work through with Trinity, that we're not always going to do exactly what feels comfortable and is wonderful to do. We have to work on our weaknesses as well. And how are we processing information? What is our strengths to process auditorily, visually, neuromuscularly, through motor patterns, and what have we learned that we need to unlearn? And I'm going to share with you a story. When you're in a Montessori teacher training program, you will be taught lessons. And I remember very specifically that in Maria Montessori's approach, master teachers would explain, you need to know the lesson well enough so the very first time you present it to a child, you're not going to make mistakes. The reason being is Maria Montessori did first work with children that, if you go back into her early writings and research, that had Down syndrome. So if you've worked with persons with Down syndrome, you'll know that they are very keen observers. And how they see it the first time is how they're going to do it many times after that. And I would actually see that in my students if I made a mistake in how I wanted it to be laid out, or how you actually do fold a napkin. That's one of the lessons, is folding napkins in practical life. And so we have to be keen observers of ourselves, because these motor patterns of how we teach to first trace out the letter G, or how we first trace out to write it in cursive, and then we make a mistake, and then we see them repeat that pattern. And now we need to unlearn a pattern so that we can learn to do it more efficiently, I think is a very interesting personal observation we need to make when we're presenting information. That was part of muscle memory and unlearning something that's neurologically become a pattern. And we look for signs of learning in our observation. Is the student inspired that they go on to do these lessons on their own? And they just love it so much. They're learning and they have that aha moment. This is working. I'm learning. I got it. It is solidly in my brain and I am inspired to go on to make more discoveries. I am an individual that has learned. If we observe that, that tells us something. This is working right now. This is a sensitivity period. This is a moment of synchronicity, and this is working. So let's keep it going. Let's keep it inspirational. And that's what we look for as teachers and as parents, and that's what we look for in our students. And that's what I was writing about, the discovery of and this is when we discover, when they're passionate, of what their interests are. What are their desires? What do they want to learn more of? And that's been so important for me as a parent of a child with Down syndrome that has had limited language. Well, we did dancing for a while. We did drama. We did theater. We did horseback riding. We did swimming. But it's like, okay, she's 15 now. She's going to be 16 in June. What is her love? What is it that she would like to do more than anything else? And to have that kind of conversation with her is still limited right now. But I think it's important. I mean, that's what I want for her. I don't want her to do what I want or what I'm guessing she wants. I want her to be inspired to tell me that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to continue to master. This is what I want to learn more about. I think that's really, as parents, that's our heart's desire. And I know as a teacher, that's what inspired me. When I saw that ignited interest and passion and discovery and aha moment in a person, I was like, I'm cultivating their life. There's something for me that's spiritual about that. It's something where life thrives, that this person with this special gift and talents has a blessing to bestow on all of us. And that's what it makes me happy. So I would share that as we're navigating through all these approaches that are wonderful. I want to say it's wonderful that people have come up with curriculums or new practices and new best practices and new tools for learning. It's really a team approach, but I do think we need to kind of balance it out. Let's see, balance it out, what is going to navigate us, and maybe what works right now, we're going to go down this way for a while, and then we're going to go somewhere else. And it's also, it's building a recipe for learning, and a recipe that may work now, and we might need to change the ingredients so that the outcome will be what we desire it to be. Because also I wrote that a bridge towards success, especially with children with developmental delays, is repetition, a lot of repetition. And I discussed this before. And I have so much more, insight into why Maria Montessori designed so many variations on a theme, variations on a concept. Because it can get boring. The children need is incredible, and it sometimes exercises my brain because it's just too much repetition for me. I'm not that kind of learner. I have my limits on the repetition I need. So we need to keep it, we need to keep those variables in there and the variation on the learning intrinsically within how we're teaching. Oh, this wasn't interesting to me. Sometimes the program or the method that we've chosen is actually training us for a while instead of the child. We learn more how to take it outside of our sit-down side-by-side sessions into going shopping, into going to the theater, into going out to the restaurant, into the community, into the school, what they call as generalizing, taking the concept from an instructional one-on-one instruction to now they're taking what they were learning and they are applying it in their life. That's what is the aha moment. That is the bridge that's linking it outside. And sometimes the recipe is the methods you're choosing, whether, like for example, I found the Teaching Time Human book, K-U-M-O-N, and the MECS software has a telling time section, which Trinity's gone through twice. They were a perfect match. It was just a perfect match, and Trinity generalized from telling time to the minute from how she learned to language it in the telling time on the MECS software to these workbook pages. They complemented each other. Nobody sat down and said they would. I took a moment and just discovered they would. I actually had this book for a couple of years and decided to pull a workbook out, and it just worked. And sometimes, and it's hard to say, and teaching can collect data, you can collect, and you can do scientific research on what instructional methodologies are working, and sometimes it's still very subjective and it's still so much observation. So it's hard to say if you left an approach how much foundational conceptual thinking was built up, so the next time you do something that has a variation on it, that original choice you made actually supported the other to go to the next step. So that's why I liken it to being a storyteller. Storytellers have different variations and ways of telling a story. So you as a storyteller present when you heard this story and your story was influenced by this particular storyteller, and now you have your story. It's just a whole community of people on the team influencing each other and how you get a different perspective on it. And I have also one practice approach or curriculum, has been a builder for the other. And then I was ending with live, to be alive in the moment with your student or child. I know we can come to the instructional session with a plan. My personal experience is you need to be the observer. You need to be thinking, is this working? What kind of a day is she having or he having? What just happened the night before? Did they get a good night's sleep? Be flexible. I think it's important to be flexible. And that way, when you're flexible and maybe the regimented, more structured program isn't working today, you have some other variables and some other tools and some things you can do that day that just might be fun on an off day to keep your student engaged. So I hope that we've had a conversation on how not to get overwhelmed by all the choices that we have as parents that have children with exceptional needs, and how we can navigate ourselves. I think the best tool is follow your heart, follow your instincts, follow your child's personality and instincts and desires. And when you capture yourself in an aha moment, like, I think that's going to work, go and catch that. Catch that dream and see if it is a synchronicity moment. That's something that's going to work for you and your child and your family. I think it's very important that we take stress off of us. If we feel like we're having fun and we're engaged in this and we are being parents that are actually, upon waking, we are helping our children develop to the next level, to follow their heart's desire, to learn more, to speak more, to converse with us more. They come home after school and we're engaged with them. We do not want to be exhausted. We want to be able to have fun ourselves, and we want to be able to continue on day after day engaged and in love with what we're doing with our children as well. Be well. Please subscribe. Please leave some comments so I can have more to converse with you about. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen. It is very important for me, and I really am thrilled and enjoy conversing with you. I hope you realize that you can see my passion and light up in me as well, and I hope for all the best in lighting up the passion in you, in your heart, and in working with your children or students. And thank you so much.